Hello, my name is Cheryl Meyer, otherwise known as Cheryl M. Health Muse, and I am a health coach. I want to welcome you to my podcast, It Feels Good to Feel Good, Future-Proof Your Health. This is a weekly show that will share lifestyle changes that you can make to support your health yourself. Why do I want to share this information with you? 7 years ago, after being a business owner for 20 years, I woke up one morning in horrific pain where every bone and every joint in my body hurt. I went to the doctor, she ran lots of tests, and then she ran some more, and then she ran some more, and finally she called me and announced she was going to give me steroids, but there was absolutely nothing wrong with me and I should seek therapy. I knew something was wrong, I hurt. So she told me I would be on steroids for the rest of my life, and I refused that I was going to have a life of pain and pills. So why was I going to take steroids if there was nothing wrong with me? So I dug in and started researching, and I turned my business over to my staff. I found a functional doctor who confirmed that I had autoimmune disease by making a series of significant lifestyle changes that I could do for myself. 5 years later, I had returned to relative health. The best part is that I am now 70, and I feel better now than I did when I was 50. I no longer hurt, which is huge. I will always have autoimmune disease, but losing the pain has been amazing. I went back to school at 67 and became a health coach because I want to share everything that I learned with others. And I wrote a book called It Feels Good to Feel Good, Learn to Eliminate Toxins, Reduce Inflammation, and Feel Great Again, as the manual I wished that I had had when I got sick, and my book has won 13 awards. So whether you want to future-proof your health and grow old with dignity and grace without dementia and chronic pain and disease, which you don't need to get, or whether or not you already have a chronic condition like autoimmune disease or cancer or heart disease, and you want to learn about what things you can do to improve your long-term health, or whether you want to improve the health of your families and raise healthy children, because 53% of our children have a chronic condition, I look forward to sharing all this information with you. I will tell you, it truly does feel good to feel good, so let's get started. I look forward to having you join me here every week, and I want to give you hope that if you have chronic pain or chronic disease, you can make changes that will improve your health, and if you don't want to go there, you're going to be fine if you listen to the show and put these things into work. I want to give you information so that you can grow old and have a better tomorrow. So thank you for joining me. Let's get started. Hello, welcome back to another show with tips that will help your long-term health. We've gone over the fact that I cook most of our meals that John and I eat because that's the easiest way that I can control what goes into our mouths and what goes into our bodies. So that's all fine and well when I'm able to control my environment like that. But the reality is we live in community, and I'm not going to give that up. I am a very social person. I love getting out with friends and family. So doing it in a way that has allowed me to remain low toxin has been a little bit of a growing experience. And I want to share with you all of the tips that I have learned over the last couple of years so that I can pretty much go out with everybody and have a good time. The first thing I want to tell you is that I had to figure out is all my life I grew up saying food is love. You know, you've probably heard that. Food is love. If your mother cooks dinner for your family when you're a kid, food is love. Well, guess what? Food does not just have to be loved. Food is community. Food is being with the people that you love and sharing experiences with them. So whether or not you get to eat what they eat, or whether or not you even get to eat at all, which there have been occasions when I've gone out with a group of people that I adore, and I ate from the emergency pack of food that I have in my car, It doesn't matter because I want to be with my community. And so that's the first thing I want you to start thinking about. If you're going to clean up how you eat, don't let the fact that the group is going someplace where you don't want to go or where it isn't as healthy as you would like it to be to interrupt what you're putting in your body. Same thing. Don't let going to somebody else's house interrupt you from making good, wise food decisions about what's going into your body, because food is health. And so what you eat will make a huge difference in how healthy you are in the future. Remember, the body wants to heal. You just have to keep giving it all the right ingredients so that it has good stuff to work with. Garbage in, garbage out. So I'm to a point now that with very rare occasion, I drop off my low toxin controlled diet no matter what I'm doing. So I want to start with, how do I handle going out to either friends or family's homes for dinner? Because that was the first pickle that I had when I started to move away from my house and still want to eat healthy. I'll start by telling you I dearly love my friends and family, but they don't eat like we eat, and that's okay. I don't lecture them. I don't make fun of how they eat. I don't tell them that the way we eat is the only way to eat. We just stay committed that we're going to eat this way and everybody else is going to take care of themselves. I would be happy if long term I'm setting an example with my husband for our friends to clean up and eat better. But both John and I had health problems that made us make the decision that this is the way we're going to eat for the rest of our lives. And so that's the first place, but that doesn't stop us from going. Often, when we go out, we'll go to a Cheryl approved restaurant. But if we're actually going to go to somebody's home, it's a whole different story. Different friends and families fall into different categories of how they eat. And believe it or not, some of those different categories all are problematic for me. If they eat processed food, I can't eat that because there's all kinds of chemicals in that food that make me sick. If they eat fast food, unless it's Chipotle, I can't eat that. And you know, I don't want to eat a Chipotle more than maybe once a month. I get sick of it. So it comes down to, what are they cooking and how are they cooking, and then what is their lifestyle from there. If they're paleo, which is how John and I eat, we've got a pretty good chance of eating healthy with them. If they are vegan, maybe not so much, because a lot of vegans eat a lot of soy. And soy is one of my worst sensitivities that I cannot eat. So if I get invited to somebody's house for dinner, the first thing I say when I call them to accept is, what are you making? And I explain to them that I have autoimmune disease and I eat a special diet. I don't want them to worry about it. I don't want it to change what they're cooking. But when I know what they're making, I'll figure out if there's anything on the menu that I can eat, and then what dish I'm going to want to bring that everybody can enjoy. I'm not a bad cook, so I bring something that everybody can enjoy, but that John and I can eat. The first thing I've learned is, if I'm bringing a dish, I need to bring some of it in separate containers, because sometimes what I bring is so yummy, it disappears before I get any. So that's not a good thing. So I keep some aside in a separate container just in case, and then the rest of it can go on the dinner table if we're eating family style, or can go out on the buffet table whether I'm right there or not. The next thing I find out is, what's the rest of what they're making, and what else do I need to fill in with? And so I think I'm in pretty good shape if I make one dish that's my own. For my family, I gave them each a cookbook that I cook from for Christmas a couple of years ago. So they know if I'm going to their house for dinner, I would really be grateful if they would cook something from one of the cookbooks I gave to them. That makes it simple. Or if I go to their house, sometimes I take groceries to their house and then I cook from the cookbook that I gave to them. All of those scenarios work. And since I'm happy to do however we can make it work. It all works for me. I'd never make a big deal about it because I don't want anybody to feel like they have to cook for me, because they don't have to cook for me. We'll be able to take care of ourselves with some minimal adjustments, and then we'll all be fine. And I'm really there just to enjoy the company and to catch up on their lives. That's what brings me the most joy, and it's not necessarily the food. Sometimes we bring our own version of whatever the gathering is offering. Let me give you a couple examples of that. We went to a hot dog party for one of our grandchildren, and we don't eat regular hot dogs, but we do eat Applegate hot dogs. So we brought our own hot dogs and we grilled them out on the grill with everybody else's. And then we got to eat our hot dog when they ate their hot dog. That didn't feel awkward. The family member who was throwing the party didn't feel awkward. It just all worked out right. Now, with the hot dog usually comes stuff like potato salad. And most potato salads are made with mayo, and most mayo has soy in it. So I can't eat that. So if they're having potato salad, I'll make potato salad using my Enjoy mayonnaise that is soy-free. Follow your heart mayonnaise. And so we'll have our own potato salad. So that works well. If they're having other salads that are using vegetable oils, I don't use vegetable oils, I'll make my own other salad. Like I make a really fabulous black bean salad that's loaded with all kinds of color and vegetables, or even just a big garden vegetable salad. But we'll bring enough food that everybody else can try and that we then have to eat with the meal. One of the other parties we went to was a pizza party. Well, we make our own pizzas and we have pizza parties of our own. We have found a Capello, that's Capello, pizza crust. Recently, Whole Foods has started carrying it here. I used to import them from Denver, but they would come 8 at a time, and I don't need 8 pizza crusts in my freezer, so I'm delighted that I can now get them locally. And we bought a steel plate so we can make our own pizza, and the pizza crust gets nice and crisp because the steel plate goes in the oven at 450 for an hour before we even start making our pizzas. So we decided we would make our own pizza. We put sauteed mushrooms and sauteed bell peppers on it, and John gets to eat some cold cuts from Applegate's that are like salami and other pizza type meats. I eat boiled ham on my pizza because I can eat that with some organic canned pineapple. And then we put all the vegetables on the pizza and we make our own pizza. And then we put it right back into the sleeve that we took it out of and right back into the box. And we cut it before that. But then we took it to the pizza party. And when everybody started getting their slices from the pizza that was delivered, we pulled out our pizza and put it on our plates and we ate that. So we were eating the same kind of food as everybody else, and it didn't interrupt the conversation at all. One of the reasons we couldn't possibly eat pizza is because of the cheese that's on it. So we're both dairy sensitive. So it works out great. I'm still part of the community. I'm still enjoying the day. I'm still catching up with everybody's life, and I'm still having fun. I'm just eating a slightly different food that agrees more with my body. When I first started to explore different ways of cooking is when I learned that I have to separate some out just in case everybody loves it and it disappears before I get it. I was playing around with raw, and I was making my own zucchini noodles and other vegetable noodles, and I was exploring working with raw tomato sauces, and all of that stuff, if you taste a lot as you're cooking, can be really quite fantastic. So hark, they all disappeared, and so now I know different and I do it differently. Now, when I invite company to my home, I try to make stuff that is okay for John and I to eat, but that I know that my company will enjoy. And it's a little bit different from what my company has been eating. So I make a lot of cauliflower rices to accompany some wonderful grass-fed meat or wild fish. And if you haven't played around with cauliflower rice, it's really easy to make. You throw the little florets into your food processor or your blender. You let them bounce around in there until they literally rice. And they come down into little tiny pieces that look like rice. And then these are the kinds of things that I have done with that. One of my favorites is to make it Moroccan. So I start off with ghee in my pan, and when the ghee gets nice and hot, I throw in almonds and I roast them so that they get browned. And then I put in cumin and cinnamon into the oil and let it just sort of roast, which fills the whole house with a wonderful fragrance. And then I throw the cauliflower rice in and I start to cook it. And I start to add my seasonings. I do organic onion and garlic in everything. They're my sidekicks. And then we start throwing in the other things that make it more Moroccan. We throw in the dried fruits. I throw in dried cherries. I throw in dried apricots. As the cauliflower begins to get cooked, I put the nuts back in, the roasted almonds, because they add a lovely touch. And so that's my side dish. And generally, people who start to eat it go, wow, this is cauliflower? Because it doesn't taste like cauliflower anymore. It tastes like something just super yummy. I have also made cauliflower rice Greek by adding feta cheese to it, by again adding red bell pepper to it, by adding sun-dried tomatoes to it, by adding Greek olives to it, and stirring that all in as the rice has cooked so that it gets that special sort of Greek twist. And then I have found a fabulous vegan feta cheese that gets sprinkled in it that adds just that little piece of wow. If you can eat feta cheese, you can add that in, but the cauliflower rice itself is very healthy. And then I've also made it Italian, where I add in Italian seasonings, which my organic paleo palette, they're called amore, which is love, and I use their seasoning in the rice. And then I add Italian olives and sun-dried tomatoes again, and Italian cheeses, only I add the vegan variety, and some onions, probably green onions for color, but it takes on the flavors of Italy. And so it's just a lovely side dish, and it's a little bit different from what most people are used to eating. I even made it once for fun with apples. It sort of was like a cooked apple on cauliflower rice, and it was quite delicious as well. I added sweet onions that I caramelized that I put into that cauliflower. So I don't adjust how I cook when company comes to my home. I serve them yummy food that fits into John and my lifestyle. And people who leave us, I think that the bottom line that I've learned is if the food is yummy, people are actually happier when they know it's also organic and healthy. If the food is not yummy, it doesn't matter. They don't care that it was organic. But they wouldn't have cared that it wasn't organic either. So just make sure that you make things with love for the people who come to visit you, and stay within the guidelines that you've set for your body so that you continue to feed it the nutritious foods that your body is demanding to operate properly. And as I've explained to you, I had a lot of pain when I was at my peak of autoimmune disease, and I don't want to go back there, so it's worth it to figure all of this out. Parties. We have had a couple of parties catered. We have a little specialty grocery store in the area that my husband has a very special relationship with. He has been shopping there for over 30 or 40 years, so they know him by name. And the first time I went, they went, ooh, so you're Cheryl, you're the one who eats organic. I said, yep, that's me. So, but they will cater parties for us. When I did my book party 2 years ago, They did a long table with fantastic organic appetizers. It was really a feast to behold, not only in terms of the food, but in terms of the presentation. And so just because I'm throwing a party doesn't mean that we're not all going to eat healthy. And so I want you to set your mind, it's a different mindset. You can make it as healthy as you want if you set your mind to it. I also want to tell you, John and I just got married 4 years ago. And so we wanted to also have a healthy wedding party dinner. And so we got married privately in a friend's home. And then we went to a special restaurant at the top of the Malibu restaurants, at the top of the Malibu mountains, called Saddle Peak Lodge. And they're famous for their wild meats. So they had boar and they had venison and they had elk and they always have wild salmon. But then they did all farm to table vegetables and appetizers and goodies. And they even did a blackboard where they listed what all the appetizers were and how they had made them in case anybody else there other than me had some kind of sensitivity that they needed to avoid. The restaurant is spectacular. It actually was an old hunting lodge back in the 1800s, and it's been converted to a restaurant. So we got to celebrate that we got married in the venue of our choice with the food that we could eat that we wanted to gift to the people who came to celebrate with us. And that's how I want you to start looking at this. Everybody was thrilled with the food that we had there. And instead of having a wedding cake, we did mixed berries with whipped coconut cream. And I have to tell you, that was sensational too. So that's how we eat out at other people's homes. If it's somebody I don't need and I get into their house and there's absolutely nothing that I can eat, I will talk in one of the future broadcasts about my emergency pack that I always have with me in the car, because there's times when I leave in the morning and I'm not thinking ahead and I reach a point where I am super hungry. And what happens when I'm super hungry is I might start to make bad food choices. So I keep an emergency pack in my car, and we'll talk about what that can look like, and I'll show you some of the foods. But for now, let's just think about the fact that that's how I eat at other people's homes and how I entertain. Now I want to talk about how do I go out to restaurants, because that becomes a little trickier. Now, if John and I are the people who are going out to the restaurant, it's not tricky. It just means I have to do a little work ahead of time. I have to find the recipe, I have to find the restaurant that we think we want to eat at, and I have to pick up the phone and call the restaurant and tell them what my sensitivities are. I have 16 of them. Actually, I saw my doctor yesterday, and I now have 3 more. So I now have 19 sensitivities that I have to eat around. And so I talk to whoever answers the phone. Now, often they will put me through to the kitchen and to the head chef. And so then I talk to him about how I'd have to eat and what could we do so that I could come and enjoy a meal in their restaurant. I am amazed at how flexible people are to try to accommodate me. Christmas before last, we were given a gift certificate at a wonderful restaurant in a neighboring city, and I really wanted to be able to use it. So I called and I talked to the owner, and he said, all I need is 24 hours notice, and I would be more than happy to make you something sensational. And so, do we have a deal? And we went. I gave him notice, and I had the most marvelous deal. And my husband was in heaven because the guy made his own sausages that were without all of the nitrates and ingredients that aren't healthy. So we both had an absolutely fabulous meal, and the owner came out to meet me to make sure everything was okay. Instead of being a nuisance, it ended up being a good thing that I gave the guy an evening where he could be a little bit more creative with his food. And we had a second time that happened. We traveled to Ohio, which is where John's family is from. And he wanted to take me to an old hotel there, whose name I'm forgetting all of a sudden, but it's had 20 different presidents stay at it since the 1820s, and it has a very famous restaurant inside. And so we're going to stay. I think we stayed in President Taft's room, and I invited an old friend that I had not seen in a very long time from my jewelry days to come down and join us at the restaurant for dinner. But I didn't know I could eat there. So we got up in the morning, and I immediately talked to the front desk, and they brought the head chef up to talk to me. And he sort of snarled his face as he was listening to me, and I thought, uh-oh, this is going to be a problem. And then he got this huge smile, and he said, yippee, I get to make something that's not on the menu. He said, I would be thrilled to make you something you can eat. You just leave it to me. So he ran off with my little sensitivity card, and when it was time for us to go into the restaurant and sit down, we reminded the waiter that I was the one with all of the food sensitivities. And the waiter came out and told me I was going to be very impressed with what he cooked for me that night. And when he brought out my meal, both my guest and my husband's mouths fell open because it was gorgeous. And Mike, who was our guest, said, oh, I wish I had known. I would have ordered that too. So I'm telling you all this because I don't want you to be worried about how you assert yourself when it's time for you to go out to another restaurant. Just tell people what you need. If they can't accommodate you, then I'd start asking some questions about what kind of vegetable, do they make things from fresh ingredients, or do they, one of the things I didn't know, but a lot of restaurants buy food in pouches. So if you've ever been to a restaurant that has 19 different pages of food, it's because they're not cooking that food. It's all lined up in the refrigerator in pouches, and then it gets in the microwave and it gets arranged on your plate. It's loaded with chemicals. It's usually saucy. It's not fresh ingredients, and so I probably don't want to eat at a restaurant like that anyway. But I find a restaurant where they do get fresh vegetables and buy real food that they're cooking for their other guests, and then I can find some way to negotiate around it. So let's talk about what kinds of things you want to be looking for when you go into the restaurant. Ask to speak to the chef and ask where it buys its produce. That's the first key. Ask what it's made ahead of and what is made to order. So if there's a lot of prepared foods that they are ready to serve you, they may not be the best thing for you because whatever's in them is in them and they're not going to be able to change it. But if they're making things to order, eureka, you get to choose what you do and don't want in that dish. So ask that question. Ask if they have any organic or grass-fed options. Ask the waiter what his healthiest dish is. Now, he may think something's healthy that you don't agree with, but I always start by asking him, what's healthy here? What can I order here that would be healthy? And then you have a place to start, which is fantastic. Ask what whole foods are available. This is important too, because if they have whole foods, then you can pretty much order what you want, and most likely the chef can make you something that you want. Ask for things to be steamed, poached, or roasted, or wild-caught, pastured, organic, sustainable, locally sourced, or farm-to-table. Farm-to-table means that it was grown at a local farm and came right in the restaurant, and it's going to hit your plate. So that's the ideal thing for you to eat because it's loaded with the most nutrients, and it's something that's in season. So that's all the way around good. Whatever you do, don't be shy to ask for what you want. Don't be shy to ask if you can order off the menu. Don't be shy to say that you want this item from this entree and this item from this entree so that you make up your own plate. I went into a very expensive restaurant in Sedona, and they had all kinds of fun things, but they didn't have necessarily fun things with the thing I was going to eat. So we pulled side dishes off of other dishes and made a fantastic dish for me. So just let them know what your issue is and don't be shy. Ask for what you want, and I will tell you, they get excited when they can make it happen. Generally, the manager of the restaurant comes and chats with us, and because they run into people all the time who have allergies who don't tell them. And so they get into trouble because suddenly it'll come and they go, "Ooh, I can't eat this because there's too many things on there I can't eat." Tell them up front and tell them what you need. It'll work. And then I tell them that I have autoimmune disease and sensitivities. I'm not shy about that. The world can know that. And pretty soon the world's going to be joining me. So it's okay. I am not gluten sensitive. I thought I was. And then we went to Europe and I discovered I could eat things with gluten in Europe because it didn't have glyphosate on it. And glyphosate is Roundup, which has recently lost 3 lawsuits because they've known for 20 years that glyphosate has been causing cancer in all of us. Well, my body is especially sensitive to glyphosate. But now that I know that I can eat gluten, if they have organic breads, then I can eat them, which is great. If they don't have organic breads, then I can't. If you can get an organic salad at a restaurant, that's fantastic, but you're not out of the woods yet. Then you have to start asking about oils. And a lot of restaurants seem to think that their olive oil is real olive oil when indeed it's not. And so the first clue is olive oil is a lovely olive green color. And so if they bring you an oil and it's not olive green, it's probably not olive oil. At which point I ask to see the bottle that they poured the oil out of. They look at me like I've landed from Mars, but they'll go do it. And generally it's 80% canola oil, 20% olive oil. I don't eat canola oil. It's genetically modified. And I don't recommend that you eat it either, by the way. So then I have to punt. If they don't have real olive oil in the restaurant, then I'll ask for vinegars or I will ask for lemon, and I will eat whatever it was I was going to eat without the oil. And that works fine. I've also been known to carry a jar of ghee with me in my purse. Ghee is clarified butter, and although I am dairy sensitive, I am not sensitive to ghee because all the milk solids have been removed, and what I'm sensitive to are the casein and the whey. And so if I order a big plate of steamed vegetables, I have ghee that tastes like butter that I can put on the steamed vegetables that make it much more enjoyable for me to eat. So don't feel shy. Sometimes when I travel for business, I take my own food with me, and when they go out to dinner, I take my food into the restaurant and I talk to the manager and I apologize that I may not be able to find anything on his menu, and if I can't, then I'm going to eat my own food. If I go to a big chain restaurant with a large party, then it's not necessarily likely that I'm going to find something to eat. So then I have my own thing to eat. And one of my favorite things to make are multicolor salads in canning jars. And so they travel well. And if I can keep it cold in an ice bag, then I'm home free. And that's what I have while everybody else is having their less healthy dinner. Sushi. Obviously, for a long time, I didn't eat sushi because I couldn't have soy sauce. And so I have recently found a non-soy soy sauce. It's kind of a tongue twister, but it's made out of sea vegetables. And although it's not as good as soy is, it's not bad. And you add a little wasabi to it, and it tastes pretty much like the old one. So I can now go for sushi again. Where we go for sushi is a place where the owner is a little bit of a curmudgeon. He kind of, when we walk in the door, and he's with all the customers who are in there. But I like those kinds of people because they usually have a big heart of gold. And so when he found out that I was sensitive to soy, he actually keeps my non-soy soy sauce up on his shelf so that the next time I come back, I don't have to worry about carrying it in there. It's already there. So, just be as delightful as you can. Not to manipulate anybody, but to have them help you out. And people do want to help you out, so don't be afraid to do that. Okay, the next one's a little trickier. How do you eat healthy at Chinese restaurants? First thing is you want to ask for brown rice. And believe it or not, you want to ask for brown rice, if possible, grown in California. You may not know what the origin of your rice is, but California rice has the least arsenic on it because we have the strictest controls. White rice has a lot of arsenic in it, so that's why I'm suggesting that you eat the brown rice, which still has the full kernel in it. Then ask whether or not they put MSG in everything. If they're making the food fresh, ask them to leave the MSG out. MSG is a neurotoxin, and I think most of us know that it's not good for our bodies, but a lot of restaurants still use it anyway because government hasn't banned it, and it is something that makes it taste better. It hits the taste buds on your tongue with what's called an umami, so it makes it taste even better. But you don't want it because it's not, it's not worth it tasting better if it's going to make you sick over the long time. So ask them if they can make you something without the MSG. If they can, then the next thing you have to ask is, can they make you things without soy if you have a soy sensitivity? You can see that I'm dealing with all of this from my own sensitivity plate. Then I usually will ask for beef and broccoli. Most Chinese restaurants make beef and broccoli. I may or may not be able to have the brown gravy that goes over it, but I certainly can eat the beef broccoli if it's just beef and broccoli, so that's a good standby. Carrots are good. Snow peas are good, but it may have to be without the sauce. If you eat chicken, then that's a great choice with vegetables too. Buddha's Feast is a vegetarian dish that, as long as they're not putting soy and MSG in it, it's a great choice for you, and they probably would go ahead and make it without those ingredients for you anyway, because it's made with fresh ingredients. We actually go to a restaurant in our town that has soup dumplings, and I know they don't have MSG, and so I get to enjoy that because I'm not gluten sensitive. So it's really a delight to sometimes go out for soup dumplings. So just make sure you let them know what you can do, and if you have sensitivities or you have things that you don't want to eat that the rest of America eats, then please give them that card so that they know what they're dealing with. Next one up on my list is Mediterranean. Mediterranean is easier than most because they make big salads. I can't have the feta cheese that goes in the salad, but I certainly can enjoy the Greek olives that go into the salad and the petrocelli and some of the other things, vegetables that go into the salads. Hummus is a great choice, as long as they're putting real olive oil on it and not a GMO vegetable oil. And all vegetable oils are genetically modified now, so you only want to take the hummus with oil if it's olive oil, but you can ask that question before they put the olive oil on it. Baba ganoush is probably a good side dish because it's made from roasted eggplant. Lamb kebabs are a good choice because sheep eat grass, so they're not eating GMO feed, so you're safe to order lamb in a Mediterranean restaurant because you'll be able to eat it. The last Mediterranean restaurant we went to also had grilled cauliflower on the menu, and it looked yummy, so that's what I'm going to order the next time I go there. Sometimes they have like a lamb. Sometimes they have salads that you can perk up with grilled calamari or shrimp or even a whole fish with freshly squeezed lemon juice. Be careful that most of the salmon served in restaurants is going to be Atlantic salmon, which means it's farmed, which means those poor little devils have grown up in a cesspool of toxic chemicals. So I wouldn't order salmon at a restaurant if it's Atlantic salmon, just as a heads up. Cod is also farmed, and so stick with the lamb, it's better for you. And Slovakia is a popular Greek fast food consisting of small pieces of meat with vegetables grilled on the skewer. So you eat it right off the skewer while it's hot. That's a good choice there. Stay away from sauces. They can be problematic and you won't know what's in them. And other than that, you're pretty home free. Now, Mexican's a little trickier. We actually have a restaurant in Sedona where our second home is that makes healthy Mexican food. She uses grass-fed, grass-finished meats, and she uses healthy ingredients in her beans, and she uses real vegetables. She actually has a little garden growing right under the window where we sit in the restaurant. So it can happen. Don't be afraid to call and ask. If I'm going to a Mexican restaurant and it's not as healthy, then I will probably see if I can get fajitas there and I probably would do vegetable fajitas and not meat fajitas. But, it's a yummy thing to eat. So wrapped up in a tortilla and I'm home free and I'm very happy. And if you're dairy sensitive, you're going to have to be careful there of the cheese again. And remember, they almost always have ceviche, so that's always a good choice. Italian. Italian can be tricky or it cannot be tricky. Depends upon what Italian restaurant you go to. You can always get a nice green salad with roasted vegetables, and that's a great start. Pasta fagioli is a great choice. I'd have to ask if the soup base was chicken, but most people don't have a chicken sensitivity like I do, and so it's probably a pretty safe bet, and it certainly is filling. Fresh fish or seafood cooked in olive oil is a lovely entree as long as it's not farmed. Pasta with marinara sauce is good. I wouldn't be able to have the cheese, but I certainly can enjoy the pasta, and so I'm happy with that. Damari is a dish with shelled clams, black tiger shrimp, fresh garlic, Roma tomatoes, angel hair pasta with olive oil and white wine sauce. As long as it's from Italy pasta and it's organic, go for it. It's a lovely entree. And in the worst case scenario, ask for plain Italian pasta with olive oil and garlic and a little salt and pepper. And then put steamed vegetables on top of it. And I would put a little ghee on top of that. And I've got a lovely dish to eat when I'm eating out. We recently have found a wonderful vegan cheese from Violife that's Parmesan. And it grates just like Parmesan. So if I am someplace where I can grate my cheese, I will grate it and put it into a small jar and take it with me to the restaurant. So I have it to put over whatever I'm eating to give me the feeling like I'm eating like everybody else in the restaurant. Okay, next up is a seafood restaurant. Unless it's a really fine restaurant, it is likely that the seafood has been corrupted with chemicals. So I just shared with you I don't eat Scottish or Atlantic salmon because it's farmed. Shrimp would be a better choice, but probably you're going to want it to be from the Gulf of Mexico or from a sustainable source. So that's where you start asking questions. I love petrale sole, so I probably would order that. Any wild fish is fabulous. So wild salmon or wild halibut are great choices. We love to go to boiled crab type restaurants where they make the crab and they steam it and they bring it and they drop it right on white butcher paper right in front of you. And then you use your hands and probably your feet to clean the crab and get all the meat. But it's a great fun way to eat, and the crab is delicious and healthy for you. I always eat the vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots that are not on the Dirty Dozen list. Those guys are all free of chemicals, so they're available most commonly as the vegetables in restaurants, so I can always eat those. So how do you go into a restaurant if you haven't called ahead? You start off by making sure you're not overly hungry. So we're back to my little fun pack that I keep in the car. If we're going to go to a restaurant and I don't know what I'm going to get to eat, I will eat the apple that's in my emergency pack before I go in there, just to take the edge off my diet, because like everybody else, if I get too hungry, then I just want to put food in my mouth, and I stop thinking about, is it healthy or not? And so since I'm committed to eating healthy and to eating low toxin and staying away from all the chemicals, I'll eat the green apple before I go in. I also carry some little packets of almond butter, so almond butter on a green apple would also be terrific. Don't be afraid to ask for exactly what you want in a restaurant. Ask all the questions that you need to have answered about sourcing preparation. I have found that most restaurants will go out of their way to accommodate me, and a little bit, it's my responsibility to control what goes into my body, but it's your waiters and the chef's responsibility to feed you healthy food that you can eat and put into your body. And the more you ask, the easier it will get, I promise. You want to focus no matter where you are, whether you're eating in your own house, at a company's house, meaning company, like family and friends, or whether you're eating in a restaurant. You want to make sure that you're eating real food. You're not eating some kind of processed thing that's all chemicals and not really food that your body can utilize. The body wants to heal, you just got to give it the right stuff. So set your mind to stick to all the principles learned from the blue zones, that you only want to eat until you're 80% full anyway. Leave that last 20%, because when you're 80% full, in 15 minutes, you're going to feel filled up to the eyeballs. So don't eat past 80% full, and you'll be happy that you followed this rule. Instead of bread, unless it's organic, ask the waiter to cut up raw vegetables for you. Whether you have a dip or not, while you're waiting for your dinner, it's a fun thing for you to munch on while you're waiting with everybody else for them to bring your entree. Ask for water right away and get lemon to put into your water. Not all restaurants will automatically bring you water, but you should always be you should always be drinking lots of water throughout the day. Your body needs to be hydrated, so make sure that you're drinking water all the time. The rule of thumb ended up being too much for me because I'm not a small girl, but you're supposed to eat half your weight, and you're supposed to drink half your weight in ounces each day. That's a lot of water. So, temper it. If you get up to over 60 ounces of water in a day, you're doing good. So just make sure you continue that. Once you know what the restaurant chef is recommending for you to eat, ask for simple food preparation. I gave you the list of different ways that you can do that, but make sure that you know how he's going to prepare it and that you know what ingredients he's going to use when he's preparing it. So that would be grilled, steamed, baked, roasted, braised, broiled, seared, and poached, if I didn't say that. Those are all good methods. If you're going to be using, look for things that say creamy, breaded, crisp, sauced, and stuffed, because they're all loaded with tons of saturated fats. So those are things that are on the menu that I would avoid. Beware of pan-fried, crispy, dipped, scalloped, breaded, creamed, and Alfredo, as those are also not particularly healthy cooking methods for you to eat. I do make an Alfredo sauce when I'm home, but I make it by steaming half a cauliflower and by soaking cashew nuts overnight. And then I throw all of that into my Vitamix blender and put all the same seasonings in it that would go into an Alfredo sauce with some ghee. And I gotta tell you, it tastes pretty darn close to Alfredo, only I've taken out all the chemical ingredients and all the dairy and made it something that my body can rejoice with. Instead of starches, ask for double veggies. I hesitate to eat even a baked potato out because of the 39 pesticides that have been sprayed on him. And so I also avoid any of the vegetables on the Dirty Dozen list. I always have a current copy of the Dirty Dozen list on my website at CherylMHealthMuse.com, so you can always check the list there. With the dirty list is also the clean 15, which are the vegetables you can eat from anywhere, it doesn't matter. So if you want to know, they do change every year, so just make sure that if it's on the dirty dozen list, you're not eating it. You're buying organic and you're eating something that is on the clean list when you're out at a restaurant. Then there's also the items that are genetically modified, which you want to stay away from. Those are things that have rather been doused in Roundup, which is glyphosate, or they have had Bt toxin inserted right into the plant, and Bt toxin blows up the little insect's belly when he eats it, and unfortunately it blows up your gut bacteria at the same time. And once it gets into your gut, it's the gift that keeps on giving, because it keeps duplicating in your gut, and it's not healthy for you. And it's a toxin that does all kinds of harm. It also cleates all the good minerals out of your body that you're getting, and we don't have enough minerals in our ground in the first place, so you don't want to get rid of the ones that you finally did get from your food. Avoid sauces, dressings, and dips, and they are usually hidden with sugar, unhealthy oils, gluten, and dairy. Stick to reasonable proportion sizes. If your plate has too much food on it, get a takeout box right away and put the part that you shouldn't be eating anyway into the takeout box. There's a couple of advantages to that. Then you have something to eat the next day that's yummy, and you don't overeat while you're sitting in the restaurant. So it's a win-win. I was brought up by a father who was a lovely human being, but he was one of those guys who, the people who were starving in our world were Europeans, because it wasn't too long after World War II. And so I had to eat everything on my plate, or I wasn't allowed to leave the table. So I used to move the food all over my plate that I didn't want to eat. And so now, if I don't want to eat it and it's on my plate, I still am moving it around and slowly eating it until it's all going to come out of my eyeballs. So the advantage of putting part of it into that box right from the beginning is that you won't do that, because remember, you don't want to eat past 80% full. Eat mindfully and eat slowly, and enjoy your company in between your bites, because that's why you're there. You're there to enjoy community. So enjoy your food as you're going. Focus on protein and vegetables, no matter what else they have to offer. Always try to get berries for dessert. They're just the right amount of sweet, but believe it or not, they're not terribly loaded with sugar, and they're loaded with antioxidants, which are good for your body. Drink water or unsweetened iced tea with lemon. No colas, no sugar drinks. Hot tea is a good choice, but beware that paper bags are preferred to those. I used to think they were so cute, those cute little plastic little tripods that come on a string these days. That's plastic. So while you're getting your tea made, you're also getting little bits of plastic into your water that has poison in it. Now, if you're thinking you don't want to be this pushy, I'm going to tell you, I already told you my final story, so you don't have to listen to it again. Which was my story about going to Ohio. Just don't be afraid to be pushy. You're not going to be pushy. They want your business. So don't be afraid to ask for what you want. There's nothing to be embarrassed about, so just ask. And sometimes I don't control where my party's going to eat. And since I eat clean the rest of the time, I make the best possible choice I can make, and then I join them. Usually that'll be some kind of a salad or some steamed vegetables or something. I don't get twisty about it. I just go. I enjoy the conversation. I enjoy the company, and I enjoy the evening. So that's how you stay true to eating healthy when you go out of the house. I am going to talk next time about how we ate healthy in Europe, because that was easier than I thought it was going to be, and I want to share it in case any of you decide to plan a trip. And I hope that you will come back and join me next week for another edition of It Feels Good to Feel Good, future-proof your health, and eliminate all the toxins that you can. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed chatting with you today.